I stand by what I've said this week, and it might feel a little too early in a Prime Ministership to say this, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Two things can be true. You can be a freshly elected Prime Minister with a two-seat majority who got a third of the vote with no capacity to get anything through the Parliament unless the Greens or Tiffany Teals or crazy cat lady Jackie Lambie are able to get something done in the upper house. And he may well be planning on a second, third and 25th term. But we have seen that Anthony Albanese has a glass jaw. He does not like when anyone wants to upset the apple cart of the awesomeness of the new broom. Remember this garbage he served up earlier in the week?
You know, I haven't been on leave. I haven't had a day off.
Oh, diddums. Now, also, he believes that any form of criticism, like the type you might feel, and certainly that I'm willing to call out on this show, that's truth to power, everyone. You don't cover their ass for years on end. You talk truth to power. And truth to power is this bloke has a glass jaw. Example number 2.
Some people apparently didn't get the memo about the new politics. The new politics is about getting things done and achieving outcomes and working together in the interest of the Australian public.
I'm sorry? Like previously, every federal government didn't try to work with state governments, and state governments end up screwing over federal governments if they're of a different political persuasion? This is ridiculous. But again, apparently, unless you're fully on board, you didn't get the note. Like the people who voted the single biggest support for any party at the last election was the one that is now the opposition, not the government. But apparently there's a new broom. Every single person voted for a change. And believe it or not, he is still sooking 3 days in a row, including in an interview with my mate Andrea Crothers today on Sky News.
I've been working very hard, and not a single journalist and a whole lot of the press gallery were there with us. No one, formally or informally, raised any issues of what was happening or potentially might happen back in Australia.
What? So it's the media's job to apparently whisper in your ear, hey, mate, we understand you need to go to NATO. But the idea that you had to have a $100 million selfie with Vladimir Zelensky that required apparently no phones and no communications, do you believe that, for 2 days is garbage. I repeat, toughen up, princess. I'm sorry that you're feeling a little bit teddy-tired after 6 weeks. See me again in 6 months, 6 years or 6 decades like you plan to be the Prime Minister. Normal people who have been suffering under higher interest rates, remember the fastest rise in interest rates and the biggest rise in interest rates since 1994. The largest individual rates 2 months in a row in 22 years. The cost of living that gets worse by the day. They are tired too. Small business, where you work for yourself and barely pay yourself, they're buggered as well, mate. But unlike you, they have to earn their money. It doesn't just turn up on the 15th of every month. It doesn't go up as you slide up the political pole. It is not a gift from the taxpayer. Those small businesses that all day, every day, worry about keeping their doors open because they were forced by government to close for 2 years, never forget it. Yet now, supermarkets that have been in families for generations might close because of the increase in power prices. The cost of every one of those small business increases when Anthony Albanese has a brain fart and people have to get a pay rise. Because you see, when you've only worked for the government, it doesn't matter. It's just the pay office deals with it. When you run the local chicken shop, when you run the real estate agency, when you run the lawn mowing business, when you have an ABN, and you might be lucky enough to have somebody help you out as a hairdresser, the only way you can find more money is to get up earlier and go to bed later. So shove your 6 weeks tired, Albo. I couldn't care less, nor could the people who are actually going to have to pay for your largesse around the world, including that $100 million for Ukraine, but $400 for the kids that have been done over by the floods, or $1,000 for the 85,000 people that have been done over by the floods. So please, forgive me if I'm not going to join in the victory lap. Meantime, as well, when it comes to the floods of recent times, Anthony Albanese has been very clear to say it's all climate, baby. In fact, he believes that his climate policy of 43% of fixing 1% of the world's problems will magically mean it never rains again.
I went into Ukraine with an electronic blackout. We didn't have phones, we didn't have the internet.
But again, that's him saying he couldn't possibly answer the phone. I apologise. Let's get to the one of Albo claims that his climate policy will save us from floods.
If we continued to not take action globally on climate change, then these events, extreme weather events, would be more often and more intense. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, is that play out.
Now, I know this is what did Al Gore call that movie? An inconvenient truth. Can I show you an inconvenient truth? These are all of the countries and what they produce when it comes to CO2 emissions. Big pink is China, grey is the rest of the world. Both of those, i.e. half of the problem, are not having to do anything before 2030. Keep moving around to the left clockwise. The next one, Russia, which means more than half of the world, India, more than half of the world does not have to do anything serious by 2030. Keep going around clockwise, clockwise, clockwise. Well, at about 5 to midnight, at about 11:55 is Australia. That little orange sliver is 1% of the world's problem. But apparently, we're going to fix 43% of 1% of the world's problems. It'll never flood again. Pull the other one, pal. It plays jingle bells.